Hey, good day and good evening, everyone. I hope you've had a great Tuesday so far, and I'm glad to see you all here. First of all, please let me know if you can hear me loud and clear, and if so, we will then start. Oh, and thank you for the feedback already. I'm glad to hear that everything is just fine. I'm Sophie, and I'm your host today. Welcome to IVF Webinars by Egg Donation Friends. We're here every week to link you with the best fertility experts from all over the world and share IVF knowledge so needed along IVF journey. You can watch IVF webinars while we're live, but you can also watch IVF webinars which are recorded, and it's available 24/7 at our website eggdonationfriend.com/IVF-webinars. IVF webinars are brought to you with help of our partners, and our partners are National Fertility Society, fertility clinics abroad, and Donor Conception Network. And today, and this evening, we are here with Elizabeth Delega, International Patient Manager at IVF Media. Good evening, Elizabeth. How are you doing?
Good evening.
Hi, nice to hear you.
Thank you, Sophie. Good evening, everyone.
Yes, and tonight we will be talking about the things we tend to overlook when choosing IVF clinic. Elizabeth will explain you the differences in IVF treatments and law regulation in several European countries, reveal also common traps and mistakes set for IVF beginners, or show warning signs when talking to IVF clinic. And Elizabeth is the best person to explain all those difficult matters because Elizabeth has exchanged over 50,000 emails and calls and chats with IVF patients day in and day out during the past 2 years. So she's also the best person to ask her a question about your concerns if you have any connected to IVF treatment. And there will be, of course, time for your question in Q&A session, so you can feel free to type your question in the chat section, starting even from now. Okay, that's it from me for now. If you are ready, Elizabeth, we can start. So let's do the IVF webinars tonight.
Thank you very much, Sophie. I think you a bit exaggerated. I think equally very good person, or even better and more experienced, is Caroline, my partner. And I believe the short video will be the best to show who we are and what we do in here. Can you play video, Sophie, please?
Yes, of course. Just a second.
Thank you.
And here it is.
I am simply here to guide you throughout your IVF journey, as I am sure you have many unanswered questions, like what location, what kind of treatment options should I consider? Free online consultation is your chance to find out what kind of clinic, what kind of doctor is actually for you. You will have a chance to speak to them and that way find out what is your best chance.
First of all, me and Caroline are here to help you. We gather experience of 1,000 patients, and we know that it's very important to know the doctor. So you have an option to speak with actual doctor that you will be meeting once you go to the clinic.
It is not about average success rates, it's about your chance. So you will have a great chance to discuss your options, find out what should be done in your specific situation. Free online consultations are done via WhatsApp, Skype, but also phone calls within 1 week, sometimes 2 weeks, it all depends on the clinic. All you need to do is just find the right time and it's done.
IVF is not only a journey, it's a fight for your family. We are in your team family. Do not hesitate, don't wait, contact us. My name is Elizabeth.
I am Caroline.
And we are
your patient coordinators.
Thank you, Sophie. I think most of you know already us by photo or voice, so you now got a bit of more of us. So let me begin our journey, because IVF, you heard it many times, it's a journey. Or sometimes it's a minefield. So let us start to make it simple as much as we can. What I suggest to you before you start looking for the treatment abroad, first of all, just do the basic. So let's establish a couple of things like who I am, what I want, what I need, and of course, the most common question and the most difficult one is how to choose the clinic. Who I am. Tricky question. Not if we are looking it from the law perspective. I am, and I will proceed with my IVF as a single, with a male partner or a female partner. In Europe, we have probably over 40 countries, and each of them has a bit different regulations. Some of them are similar, but can differ from country to country. In terms of IVF, there are countries which are still not allowing to proceed with, for example, donor's eggs, or as a single, or let me give you a clue. So knowing your status will narrow down your search. How will narrow down your search? Legislation in Czech Republic and Poland supports only heterosexual couples. Law in Ukraine, Latvia, and Greece supports single women, but there is a but. Like if you are in the relationship with a female partner, you need to check with her, or you need to get to know, in between yourself, if it is okay with her not having a legal rights to a child. Then we have Spain, I think the most popular country, and probably the most popular for sure among us and UK-based patients. Spanish law supports lesbian couples, including a ROPA program. For some who are not familiar with the term, this is a case when one of the partners is a donor of the eggs and the other is a carrier. So she is carrying a pregnancy. So they are open to ROPA program to support lesbian couples, but it was a surprise to me. Legislation towards surrogacy is not so favorable. So meaning it is not allowed. And the other thing which was kind of tricky and surprising for me, but this is something on the side on the UK legislation, shipment of semen is not allowed from UK in egg donation program. I'm explaining why. In Ministry of Health from UK, there is a requirement to put the details, the ID of person with whom the semen will be fertilized. So basically you need to give the identity, reveal the identity. And as most of us know, Spanish law, it's a strictly anonymous egg donation. And then we have a North Cyprus who has no restrictions whatsoever in this kind of guidelines like I mentioned before. The other questions that we are asking is, and this is very frequent, and this is nothing to do to offend you, this is an age question. And this is also as well focused on the legislation. This is nothing to do with giving you any indication that you shouldn't proceed with the IVF, or well, you have some limits. And the legislation supports in Spain, for example, women up to age of 50 plus 364 days. Why is that? Meaning the in the day of the embryo transfer, you cannot be older than 51. Then we have a Czech Republic, which the law states that you cannot be older than 49. Finally, Greece, which is not supporting you if you are over 50. Ukraine, Latvia, and North Cyprus, here is a bit of difference. And so with the Poland, the law is not stating the age limit. However, most of the clinics require for you to be medically evaluated. So meaning if you can proceed with the carrying the pregnancy. And here is something which some of us, we don't know, because we can look at different clinics and within the same country, we can have a different age limit. So age limit can be set by the law, like in case of, let's say, Greece and Czech Republic, but also there are guidelines from internal bodies like Committee of Ethics, and this is a case of Spanish clinics. You will find a clinic which supports women over 53 or up to 53 in Spain, but the clinics who are gathering and follow the guidelines from the Committee of Ethics will not proceed if you are over 51. Of course, there are also individual clinic rules because they are private, so they can set the internal laws. And as mentioned, this can differ in between the very same country, from clinic to clinic, different regulation. Also, the different guidelines regarding the health. Here we comes to what I want. And what usually we want. We want the IVF with own eggs, donor eggs, and we sometimes do not know because we are veterans, but let me just go by one. Yes, this might be sound like a very strange, but we do have frequently people who are coming to us and they said that they want IVF, but there is nothing, there is no consultation with the fertility doctor. And you can say that, oh, I didn't get pregnant for the 6 months or 2 years or something like that, but you didn't do any test. And here is the time that we suggest with the Caroline. Most of the times you go and check yourself with the fertility doctor. You do the basic tests. If you are, already, let's say that there is no problem with the hormones, thyroid or anything like that, or there is nothing in the scan. So do check up yourself for AMH, FSH, and antral follicle count. What this will give you? This information will give you information about your fertility status. This is not that we want you, let's say, to start looking for an egg donor, because sometimes many people are scared that clinics and doctors are pushing for the egg donation. This is not a case. This is a case to know where you stand and what to do next, how to plan. There is let's say, some guidelines and rules, general ones from the clinic, and sometimes patients are getting shocked when I'm saying if your AMH is below 1, clinic might say that your best chance is to proceed with the egg donor. This is not something that we are pushing you, because we are we are first one to wish you the very best luck and not to proceed the route of IVF, because it's a tricky route. So once you know your AMH, your FSH, and the antral follicle count, you are getting this information about your status and what it's saying to you. If the clinic is suggesting, well, I'm coming for the religion beliefs, because this is mostly a case if the patient's over 40, that the religion doesn't allow to you proceed with the donor's eggs, and you already know that your chances are low. But the clinic said, yes, no problem. This is something what I call red flag. Yes, the clinic can agree, and most of the clinics, the good clinics, will allow you to proceed with your own eggs when your score is poor. However, they have to tell you about your real chances. So meaning, well, we agree you will proceed with your own eggs. Let's say Spanish clinics usually say one time. The other clinics said yes, or the doctor, of course, will say yes, we will proceed with your own eggs, but your chances are this and that, giving the percentage. Of course, this is not never. Every person is the same, and your case is the same. But there are certain, I don't know, age limit, for example. Egg donation is suggested for women over 40. Even if your scores are amazing, still there will be indication just because of the quality of eggs. This is not that the doctors are pushing you. They will say that you are having a better chance to proceed with the egg donor. And of course, if your religion beliefs or personal beliefs, or you are not mentally ready, so meaning you are having this stress, and that will be in back of your mind, you will be feeling still that you should give yourself a chance, give yourself a chance. But keep in mind that the clinic has to say to you your chances, how it is looking, how the procedure would look like, that if you are ready to do the embryo banking or egg banking, so it will take you a couple of more rounds, so meaning this is more costly. And even if you are over 40 and you have a great AMH and it's expected to have more eggs and more embryos, of course, would you decide for the genetic testing? So let's say if there is a case of 1-2 embryos, there is no braining, you are proceeding with this what you have. But if there is a more embryos, would you decide to do the genetic testing? So you are starting from those who are genetically normal. Also something to discuss with the doctor, very individual. And the other thing, if you are successful after the first transfer, what do you think you want to do with the stored embryos? Because the law in between the countries can differ. And do you want to come back after a certain time? So let's say you are on the age limit with one of the country. Do you want to come back, or you are able to come back? Of course, the things can happen, something that you will not expect, but still best to know the legislation in the country if you are able to decide what is happening later on with your embryos. And of course, as mentioned, the price. If there is an age limit, if there is a certain phenotype which is more not common in Europe, do I want to go, let's say, start with the own eggs in the same clinic and later on proceed with the egg donation? If I want to do it in the same clinic, those are things to consider with the very beginning of the road. And we are going to what I need. Here we have if I need egg donor. This is usually a case of patients who are veterans. This is the word, veterans, and they did experience the road of own eggs treatment. Usually this is a failed, or they know that they have no chances, real no chances, or they don't want to waste their time. It sounds maybe ugly, wasting a time, but this is looking at the financial side and emotional side. This is also my decision, because fabulous, I am proceeding with my own eggs if I stand a chance. But if I cannot get this finance for later on road, if looks like I failed, I can proceed with the donor's eggs. And I have patients who had still, when they knew No, they have low chances, but they proceeded with the donor's eggs. And some of them, I think this stress was causing them not to be successful with the donor's eggs. But the other ones, once they succeeded with the donor's eggs, especially the first time, there was no braining. There was no, thought that I should try with the own eggs first. This is something also what I suggest for you if you had a failed IVFs with the own eggs. Give yourself a time. You know that there is a problem on your eggs, the quality. Book yourself a treatment within a year. It will be not much difference, let's say, in terms of your health. Nothing will change more, but you give yourself a time to relax, and then perhaps get a spontaneous pregnancy. And I'm talking about this just because of the experience. In past 6 months, I had 3 cases of patients who were about to proceed with their own eggs treatment still, and they got pregnant. And I have 3 cases of patients who already had an IVF with their own eggs, and they got to the point that, okay, I'm ready with a donor, and they got pregnant. So I'm just cheering for the healthy babies to be born. Looks like it's proceeding very well, but back to the heavy topic. Donor's eggs. How much do I want to know about donor and the phenotype? Okay. Law differs in every country. And if we are thinking about treatment abroad, we need to decide how much we want to know. Favorite country is Spain. And there are 2 things we are usually blocking patients, most of the patients, to proceed with the Spanish clinic. It's a finance. This is a more expensive country. Of course, it's coming with the reason. It's cost of stay, but also there is a great competition between the clinics, but this is in good, meaning they are trying really hard to get you pregnant, to get the real thing. But Spain is a strictly anonymous country, meaning most of the countries European are strict, but in Spain you will know very little about your donor, meaning you will know height, weight, age, and blood group and Rh factor, and this is it. You can ask, for example, I would like my donor to be a Scandinavian background, or I will want to know to have Indian heritage. You can say that, but you will never know if it was respected. What you will know and what they really are good at, you will match somebody who is at your twin sister, the most looking like you in terms of appearance. The hair and eye color, this is the most thing that is changing. So they are focusing more about nose shape, lips, and all the other things which are not so changing. Like if you look even within your family, who is heritaging, who is getting, eye color from mother, father, this is changing. So they are looking at something which is more common. And in the other countries, European countries, you will get more information and also about level of education and hobbies, interests. This is important for some of you. And Greece, Poland, Ukraine, Latvia, North Cyprus is supporting that. They are giving more information, and you have more influence. Let's say you will be told and that we have a donor, this and that, and the listing. And you can choose from, let's say, you can accept or not. Also here, the blood group will be, if in case you are proceeding with your partner, will be matched either to you or to your partner. So there will be still heritage in case of need of blood or organ donation. This is something, always in the back of our mind. And we have also open ID. Some of you understand the open donor, like you can see the photo. Some of you want to know as many details from the past generation. Some of you know well, the clinic is mentioning open ID 18 plus, meaning your child, once it's turning 18, will know the ID of the donor, of who was the donor. And please keep in mind, doesn't guarantee you that the donor will want to have a contact with your child. This is 18 years. It's a many, many years. And this is also doesn't guarantee, of course. It's giving you an option to track down the person, but in 18 years, many things can change. Option to proceed with the own donors. Some of you want to keep it within a family or somebody that you know. So meaning your sister will be donor, your friend, or either female or male. This is not an option in every country. This is an option only in 2 countries in Europe, in North Cyprus and also in Ukraine. There are some clinics which are offering photos as adults or as a baby. But here also, this can be different from countries. Photo as an adult can be shown to you, but only at the clinic when you come. Nothing that you can take with you or send over. Or as a baby. This is also something that donor can agree to, but not necessarily this is a must. And most of the cases that we have photo as adult, when you are set, let's say, catalog, this is single clinics in Ukraine. And photo as a baby, some of the clinics are giving this option by, of course, when they ask the donor, but only at the clinic in the North Cyprus. We are to the point where we are asking ourselves what I need, where I find my donor. If I'm not white Caucasian is, of course, the most common phenotype or race among Europe. However, we need to remember that Europeans, we are different. So we have a Slavic, Hispanic, a Scandinavian. We are similar, but we are not the same. If you want for your donor from generation to generation, let's say, to have this look, let's say blue eyes and blonde, like Scandinavian, you are focusing on the clinics in this location. And the same with the Slavic. Of course, you can go to Greece or Spain and find the donor who is blonde with the blue eyes. However, it doesn't mean that there is no other phenotype or other appearance within a country. We had a couple of complaints, which, we do not take so much seriously because at the end there was a child. However, if you are sensitive on this topic and you are UK-based patient with pale blue eyes and your child is having olive skin, the questions will be asked. Of course, some of you can get away and had, oh, my grandfather, he's looking like my grandfather. He's not any longer around, so nobody can, tell you that. But not every one of us is very comfortable with that. So if you want to achieve or give yourself more chance to have this appearance, focus on those countries. Other phenotypes not so common and found in the Europe are, for example, South Pacific Asian, meaning what we ask. Asian, if somebody is saying that I need an Asian donor, we are asking Asian like Indian or Asian like Chinese. So there are more specification here given. Spain and North Cyprus, they're having the most common to be found, this donor. And of course, if you are focusing on Ukraine and Greece for other factors, you need to think that this is rare and there are additional charges just because it's donors are compensating or, well, harder to find. African donors, Black or Caribbean. We need to remember also that there are East or West African Black donors and also Caribbean. This kind of donors you will find in Spain, North Cyprus, and Barbados, the Caribbean type. So something to keep in mind. And they're also to be found, but usually they are booked in advance in Ukraine. But as mentioned, they are booked in advance, and usually the waiting time is much longer. Middle Eastern usually is a case of North Cyprus. However, if you are fine with the general look of Greek or Spanish, it's also okay. But if you want to have the heritage, this is the place that is giving you an option. Mixed race or request on the heritage, like Japanese or Indian, those two locations are just most common. Spain, because of the universities and the exchange of students. North Cyprus, just because they are trapped in between those continents, and also good touristic place and reason to stay for longer. So that is why there are more donors in different phenotype. And we are probably down to the question which is the most common and most difficult to answer: how to choose the clinic, and most tricky one for us. Okay, knowledge. First of all, you scan the clinic, you're asking the questions, and I just realized with the time that I do not pay attention any longer to the success rate, which most of you are focusing at the very beginning. I do ask other questions. For me, the indication how good the clinic is, the embryology lab, is, for example, how many cycles, frozen cycles, they run, and not about the percentage of the success rate. You ask how many of them, and then you look at the success rate. So meaning how many of them were really going into the pregnancy, and how many cycles per year is run in the clinic with own eggs and donor eggs. Some of the clinics make this difference, some of them not. Of course, when you proceed with the own eggs, the situation can be different. You can have a 45 years old going with the own eggs, and you can have 35 years old. So here the situation cannot be, similar. However, if you have over 1,000, for example, over 1,000 treatments per year, this is giving you that. Sounds ugly, but this is a practice. So how much practice the clinic has, and you know how successful they are, how knowledgeable they are, and also how many doctors, embryologists, coordinators, even midwives, everything it's matter in terms of knowledge. Also the publications of the doctors in terms if you have a specific situation, medical situation. So who of them, if there are doctors who specialize in your case, something also to look at the clinic in terms of knowledge. And it is important with the communications. Do they answer my questions? And it might looks very silly, but if you send a list of questions, of course, I'm not saying we got the list of the questions for 20, so me and Caroline are losing sometimes patience, and it's hard to focus with the 20 questions right away and answer about most of the clinics. But if you ask simple 3-4 questions at the very beginning and you are not being answered, is that right? Option to meet doctor. Okay, some of the clinics are charging to speak with the doctor, but I think it's a good investment. You spend 100 or 150 euro, and you will know that you don't like the doctor. He's making or she's making you uncomfortable. and you are traveling sometimes first time to this country or to this clinic, and you are going there and you already stressing yourself from home that this doctor is not right, the clinic is not right, it's, you know, and this might be only 10% of chances that is adding to the stress, but it's adding to the stress. So you better try somebody else and use us and use our option to help you to speak with the doctor. Intuition. Yes, intuition is there and it's important. What your gut feeling is saying. This is something that you know that you don't like somebody or you like somebody, but there is nothing, you know, in particular that you can say, but your brain is working this amazing way that is giving you this information. And do not underestimate the intuition. It's usually right. Logistic, also very important. When I'm asking you, you say you want to go to Spain. Where in Spain? Which city is the closest? And if you are focusing on one city, it can be, you know, far away from the airport, and how long it will take you to get to the clinic. And if you are going, and yes, you do plan from the very beginning that your trip will be not a single trip. Of course, it might be a matter of getting lucky from the very first time, and we wish for you to be that. But sometimes it requires for you a more often visit, and you take this into account when you are planning your trip. Preferences. This is something. This is what patients are saying to us. I felt like a number. I came to this very big clinic. I chosen them just because they have this background and they are long time established and they do the researchers, but I felt like a number. So meaning you want to be felt and you want to be remembered. Choose a smaller place. And how to choose the smaller place, how you know this is a smaller place? Look at the number of the cycles run per year. If it's below 1,000, it is more boutique clinic. Or you get this vibe when you will be communicating with the coordinator. If the coordinator is responding to you within 24 hours, it is meaning that the clinic is smaller, or they have so many coordinators or other staff, midwives, that is able to take care of you. Preferences for the country, of course, we go to the place that we know more. And if you've been going for vacation to Spain or Greece, you already know some cultural background and you will be feeling more comfortable. And season also, this is important. It's more crowded, more costly to stay on the certain, of course, season. And the budget, it's something to think about. And sometimes it's a number one. I'm not saying cheap and the best, because it's hardly, to meet this expectation. However, yes, we do think about the budget. This is something not to underestimate, and this is a stress factor. So do not forget about it. My best advice for you: yes, take time off from thinking about IVF. It's hard, but this is helping for you. In past 6 months, as mentioned, my patients got naturally pregnant. And if you are able, let's say there is no clock ticking, you are not on the edge of suggested age limit, or your test results shows that you have still time, take your time and book yourself, in 6 months for the treatment, or plan yourself a treatment. Let's say I begin in 3 months time, thinking again about the IVF, and you switch off. And this is the best advice I can give you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for the great presentation. Very informative indeed. And it will be no surprise if I tell you that we have many questions already. So we will go straight to the first one, which yes, very interestingly, has also the follow-up comment. So I will display and read both, and then maybe you can comment on that as well. Okay?
All right.
Okay, so the first question and then comment right away. Dear Elizabeth, I was looking for the egg donation IVF clinic in Spain. However, just recently my doctor in Canada told me not to go to Spain because their success rate look unrealistically high. He thinks that Spain clinics use frozen eggs instead of fresh cycle. His advice was to go to Prague. Could you please comment on this statement, and thank you. And then we have the comment which I just mentioned. Please make sure you ask the clinic if they give you success rates per embryo transfer, which are usually around 60%, or cumulative, which are 90. I didn't know that before I asked Elizabeth one day. So, is it true, Elizabeth?
Yes, yes. Well, what clinics suggest to proceed with is usually to go with the fresh cycle first, and then to proceed. Usually, if you are proceeding with the egg donation, and the semen quality, if you are proceeding with a partner, or if you are not proceeding with a partner and you use the donor semen, the quality is good. So this is expected to have more than 2 embryos, and of course, it is more difficult to make, let's say, synchronize recipient and the donor in the very same time. So if patients are going from far away, like Canada or USA or Australia, I suggest to consider a frozen cycle, but this is, you will know, the clinic will tell you that this is a fresh or frozen, because usually what they do, they give you information about the date of the egg retrieval and how many eggs are retrieved, and then you follow up in the third day or second day how many embryos are there and how many embryos are there on day 5. And it's very odd for me to tell from where this information about the frozen eggs is. So I can tell you what is best in terms of being sure that you are going to the clinic from the very far away and you have embryos to transfer, because it's easier to synchronize one person at a time. So meaning they do this stimulation, they get all these embryos and they freeze them, and you with good clinic, after chowing, they are losing about 10 to 15% of the embryos. But please remember that if the embryos do not survive the thawing, meaning it means that most likely they will not survive the hostile environment in your uterus, because this is, perfect an ambience in lab. And why Prague? I'm just very puzzled about that. I would say Prague, it's a 10 million people country, and it's much smaller than Spain, which is probably 4 or 5 times bigger. And I really can't tell from where this statement come. I'm sorry.
Yes, and thank you for handling this question, of course. And now the next question, just to clarify, and a short one, what do you mean about success rate? It means in the first attempt?
Success rate, yes, you need to ask the clinic how they calculate. Some of the clinics are very transparent, and this is what we are focusing on our side. Ask the success rate per embryo transfer. But honestly, I can tell that success rate can be measured more in the egg donation program, just because the age factor of the recipient is not so relevant, because you are getting a good quality eggs. And if you think about the own eggs treatment, how you can measure if somebody is different age, and it can be different, from 25 to 45. Usually this is a case. And if up to age of 35 you have high percentage of getting pregnant with your own eggs, and above the age of 35 the quality of your eggs drops by half. This is a studies. For example, you can get this information in Dr. Schlarp webinars on our site, and other doctors also. So so you ask the clinic, if you are checking some website, you ask the clinic what they mean by success rate. This would they advertise if it's a cumulative, and usually cumulative meaning at 3 attempts, or if it's per embryo transfer. And please do remember that some of the countries are having, because sometimes you can have 1.5 embryo transfer, success rate, which is you do not transfer half embryo. It's meaning sometimes it's advised to proceed with 1 embryo, and sometimes it's 2 embryos. And most of the clinics, good clinics, are proceeding with 2 embryos maximum of the transfer. And yes, there are clinics who are getting higher success rate, but means that they do transfer more than 2, more than 3 sometimes. So please do be careful with that.
Yes, and thank you for explaining this to us, Elizabeth. And we can, of course, jump to the next question, which is waiting for you already now. And the question will be this one. I've been looking into embryo donation adoption, concentrating on Czech Republic. I'm in a male-female relationship, but we are not married. How do I decide on a clinic? I've also got adenomyosis and endometriosis. Tough question.
Okay. Yes. First of all, I would suggest to have a consultation with the doctor, because if it can be, endometriosis can be sometimes treated, or how severe it is. Embryo donation or adoption, here is another thing. Based, for example, on budget, simple. Embryo donation, it's meaning that embryo will be created with the double donation from the female and male donor. Adoption, it's meaning that there is an embryo already stored in the clinic, and you can say this is donated or left over, or given as an option to make somebody's happier, and it's cost less. And well, you don't have to be married to proceed with this treatment in Czech Republic. You can be you will be just signing the statement that you are in the relationship, and meaning even if it's a double donation or embryo donation, when none of you is having a genetic link to the child, you are a parent, because you are signing the documentation that you are accepting these terms. And how you decide about the clinic, this is the very same process like you would go if you would proceed with the IVF. Knowledge, gut feeling, and what you will know from the doctor. And of course, best would be to meet them in person to check, just because your case is more complicated, for the doctor to see with your own eyes and decide if you need a surgery and a bit of longer wait period, or this is something to proceed right away. If you are within Europe, you're staying in UK or any other country, just plan this trip. It's a short trip, but it's giving you most chances.
Yes, and huge thank you for clarifying this as well. And we will now take the next question, which is actually connected to the location. So let's go with this one. Is the egg donor anonymous in Czech Republic?
Yes, it is.
Yes, and thank you for...
You'll be getting, of course, more information about the hobbies, interest, and eye color, hair color, and most of the clinics are giving you some information about also family history, but you will not know at any point, or your child later on, the ID. This what I see the trend of checking, your genetic link on the website. You're registering, you are sending your either information about the family names history or something, or you are sending the sample of your saliva and they are checking the background. So I am just thinking that within a couple of years this will be very common. This is more common in USA. And yes, you might not connect, or your child might not connect to the actual parent, biological parent. However, it can be connected, to the cousin or sibling or somebody related to. So and we are getting this information, about this connection. So I think it's a matter of, I don't know if it's a 10, 20 or 30 years, but they will be able to track down some information.
Yes, and thank you for this sharp information and then additional comment as well on this question. And of course, we have more to go, so we will take a look at the next one. Not easy one, I think. What caused unsuccessful IVF?
There are several factors, and that is why we want you to check yourself. Your AMH, first of all, your fertility status. And if you have poor AMH, then this is, or you are over 40, 45, and you are proceeding with the own eggs. This might be, on your side, meaning you have a poor quality or low number of eggs. But there are other factors, medical factors, like the wrong implantation window, or we tend to forget that there are two in this equation. It means it's a female side or male side. Sometimes it's both of them or none of them, meaning there is a bit of poor quality on the woman side, on the male side. And I think as many people there are, that many answers can be. I wish, and probably doctors wish, to have an answer. And I think the worst, and a couple of times I heard, this is a worst case of situation where the doctor, they don't know. Because if there are NK cells or some other immunological problem, they can give you an answer. But sometimes really everything is looking normal from female side and male side, and there is no pregnancy and there is no successful IVF even. And with the egg donation and double donation and everything, and there is no answer. So unfortunately at this moment I don't think so there is one single answer to that. I'm sorry, but we are working on that.
Yes, and thank you for the great question and your great answer to this one. And yes, we have the next one. So straight to it. I would only consider non-anonymous egg donors. Where is it possible in Europe? So you can maybe briefly summarize.
Yeah, sure. So at the moment it is in Spain, Greece, North Cyprus, Latvia, Ukraine, Poland, Czech Republic. I think I didn't miss any country where I would advise to proceed with, of course.
Yes, thank you for for the answer to this question as well, and for clarifying this. And the next one, which is the best clinic for sperm selecting? Any advices on that?
Okay, clinics are doing their best and they follow up some certain procedures in about the sperm selecting, but I do not know what do you mean by the best. I can tell you what is important in outside sperm banks. This is a number of certificates or a past history, because some of the banks are having a history, meaning that they done some mess up. Of course, never happened again, but it happened at least once. So this is something to check about. Certification is the first of all, and second, it's the history to be checked. From the clinic side and clinic's perspective, I wouldn't tell. They always follow up certain rules, and of course for the clinic, if there will be, let's say, some disease or something overlooking, it would be meaning they are gone from the market and they will not allow themselves, which is good for us.
Yes, of course, and thank you for this opinion to this question as well. And just right away to the next one. My husband morphology is 0%. I would like to know what would be our chance to use donor eggs.
If you are considering a semen donor, then I don't see any problem. But if morphology is 0%, that meaning there is no alive semen and there is no chance to proceed with his semen. So, well, in case probably, well, I don't know if it's something, from the medical perspective, meaning there is injury or there is some medication can be given just because medical condition. But if it's 0%, it means there is no alive semen. However, I would suggest to do the recheck all this test and proceed with the doctor, because I cannot give you a medical advice, because probably there will be some other things that the doctor will ask you. Probably I can imagine that this is a case or that the donor would be needed for both of you. Of course, if you already know that you need a donor. Sorry.
Yes, okay, and thank you. And in the meantime, we have also the follow-up comment to the previous question. So if you let me, well maybe just come back for a second. Yeah, to make any comments if needed. Sorry, what I meant by my question about anonymous donor was that we would use a donor who was open to contact for any offspring when they reach 18. Where in Europe would we need to go?
Okay, so this is another thing. Just please remember, it doesn't guarantee you. There is no contracts that are signed that will mean that in 18 years the donor will like to be contacted or will want to be contacted, because they can say that they are ready to be contacted, in 18 years time. However, things can change in their life. But open egg donation, it is allowed right now in Portugal, which no, let's say, bending the law. It is within a law in Portugal. And there are clinics in Ukraine when you can have this option, but there is an additional charge. Sometimes it's not really like relatively high. Let's say it's adding €1,000. However, this is an option, but this is with bending a law. They register somewhere else. They register the donor in different country where the open donation is an option. But what I know at the moment, Portugal is the only country which is within the law.
Okay, thank you. So also to explain and clarify, we have also the comment which is about Portugal and Ireland, for example. And what about in UK? Maybe you can add anything?
Yes, in UK it is allowed. However, the problem in UK, last time I heard, it is 1,100 donors registered. And just because there are not so many donors, most of, I cannot tell that most, but many of them are over 30, where in the rest of the Europe they keep very tight to have the cutoff age of 30. It might look, they say that up to age of 35. However, looking at the success rate, something that I don't like to look at, but probably it's adding another things like medication and some experience. I see, and most of my patients are looking, and of course, the price and waiting time, which is, I think in UK, I've heard many times it's like 2 years or more. It is suggested to proceed somewhere else when it's faster, younger donors and more experience.
Yes, and thank you for explaining this matter to us and additional comments as well. Yes, and we will then take the look at the next question. For a 52 years old woman, what kinds of medical evaluation should be done?
Okay, so first of all, a part of all the tests that you will need to do, like in the usual IVF with the egg donation, you will be asked for women over 45, a breast scan, pap smear, and kidney, heart, and liver to be checked. Also, you will need to find and GP or who will be taking care of you during the pregnancy, and the doctor who will say that you are fit to carry and deliver a child.
Yes, perfect. Great. And thank you for your answer to this question. And of course, no surprise, the next one. Can I somehow contact a few clinics of my choice with your help? I get the impression that when I contact them via clinic website chat, I am served by a chatbot, not real coordinator. You're real.
Let me check. Yes, I'm real.
Yes.
Yes, our contacts will be displayed probably at the end. Yes, Sophie? And
Yes, of
please.
course. Just in a second, I will also put you all the contact information in the chat section. This is the way.
Yes, you can also visit the website. We are there with the WhatsApp information or fill up the form and also email address. So, but just give us on off tonight, please. So from the early morning, 8 a.m., you can start. Go ahead.
Yes, and you have detailed contact information to Elizabeth and Caroline in the chat section. So feel free to use that.
Just bother Caroline, okay, right now. For sure, she's just bored.
Yes, and in the meantime, I will bother you, Elizabeth, with the next question. And as I said, we will take the next one. I was going to do PG, I think, but the clinic suggested NGS instead, which is more expensive, own eggs. Is it worth paying extra for? How much better are the success rates for NGS?
I do not have the information, and I think I didn't come across any studies comparing those two methods. So you probably would be the best to do the mystery client and ask other clinic, based your medical evaluation and what they would suggest. And I would, I just mentioned own eggs. If you had some history, how many eggs are retrieved and how many embryos were there, and if there were more than, of course, 2, this is something to consider, or unless you have some medical condition that indicates for you to proceed with the genetic testing. Of course, do ask a second opinion, or even the third one, and then you can compare. But at the moment, I don't think so. I've heard of any publication just to comparing those two methods. NGS, I think, is the latest development. However, I don't think so. I can give you any referral to any publications comparing those two. But come back to me in a month or two, the things can change. And if you can wait, then I will do some research tomorrow, asking some friendly doctors, so maybe they'll give me some insight about it.
Thank you. Great to hear that. And thank you for the question, of course, as well. The next one on the list, which is waiting for you, will be then this one. What can you tell us about the options given? Does it depend on country or is it per clinic? For how to make embryos if using donor eggs. I assume there are options to pay for a donor's entire cycle sometimes and fertilize fresh, then freeze the embryos. But what else can happen? Buying frozen in batches already harvested, fertilizing in upcoming cycles already planned, by buying a portion of the eggs to be retrieved.
I'm a bit puzzled with this question. Usually when you are proceeding with the frozen eggs, meaning the clinic guarantee you a certain number after thawing. So if there were eggs of poor quality, they will not survive thawing. It's not meaning that you are buying a container and you're supposed to have, you bought 6 and after thawing there are 3. Usually they guarantee. I would say go for even option to have a guaranteed embryos, and embryos are stronger and more likely to survive freezing. So not too sure if you are proceeding with the donor semen or with your partner semen, because clinics can give you a guarantee if the semen of your partner is meeting clinic quality or like a level, and they can guarantee you an embryos. But if you are proceeding with the Siemens donor, then the guarantee is there, because of course in terms of embryos, sometimes it's rare if there is a double donation, the donor's eggs and donor semen, they do not match and there are not so many embryos. It's rare, but it's happening. So you better think and consider and check your situation if it's not better to go with the guarantee of certain number of embryos. And of course choose the clinic which is skillful in freezing embryos and having the successful treatments with the frozen transfer.
Thank you for answering even those complicated questions. So appreciated indeed. I will then display the next question for you. With donor eggs, if you want to have a sibling, how do you ensure sample eggs from the same donor? Because I don't think any of the clinic can guarantee 2 normal blastocysts.
Okay, yes, clinic can guarantee you 2 normal blastocysts. There is something called exclusive donor, meaning you are paying more for this donor and the eggs of this donor are used only for you. You can do more stimulation and have more embryos stored. But in this kind of guarantee, as mentioned in the previous question, the semen quality has to meet clinic standards. And of course, it can be a case that they stimulate the donor and she will, even if you pay for the lower program, and she will have more embryos. You are, let's say, best case scenario, you are pregnant with the first time, you can come back for the remaining embryo later on. However, of course, it doesn't mean that the quality of embryo, unless you test it, and still it doesn't mean that it's guarantee. It is okay. In that case, they can see if the donor is still active, unless of course you are planning, doing the family planning from the very beginning, and they can stimulate, of course, with extra charge a donor 1 more time or 2 more times and produce more embryos or eggs for you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you for the answer. And I think that we will stay in the topic of guarantees and we will take the next question related to it. So, do you know if many clinics guarantee blastocysts in IVF with own eggs?
Probably if there are guarantee programs, let's say that they will give you, they will get you pregnant or money back, then I think it is an option. Definitely with IVF own eggs, there are guarantee programs in Ukraine and Spain. However, I do not know how they proceed with the own eggs. I know some clinics when you will need a medical evaluation, probably it would require from you, definitely in Spain, that you would need to visit the clinic and they will check you and of course your partner in the spot. They will not make decision with your medical file sent over from the clinic abroad. That's for sure in Spain. In Ukraine, probably, but I would have to verify that. So you can come back to me, or we'll make a note with Sophie, and I will check this information for you, and I will hopefully tomorrow have the answer for you. Okay.
Yes, of course. Yes,
Sophie,
of
be
course.
the brain tonight for me, please.
No problem. As I told you, you have also contact information in the chat section you can use freely. And yeah, feel free to just throw us an email. No problem with that. And the next question will be this one. How big is the difference in success if I'm having fresh eggs versus frozen fertilized? Should that be a factor in my choice of egg donor to only pick one that has an upcoming cycle so I can fertilize fresh instead of freezing eggs and then having to freeze embryos again?
Okay. Well, fresh is giving you more chances, and it's 10, 15. In some Czech clinics, there is even 25% of a difference in not only success rate but survival rate. So, as mentioned already in my previous answer to you, well, if you go with the guarantee, when there is a certain number of eggs that you will get after towing, means that the weaker quality will not survive. If you fertilize, then still something that to be checked with the clinic and the specific clinic, if they can guarantee or they do expect that there will be similar number of embryos. From what I see, good clinics, what they do, they suggest to proceed with fresh cycle and then minimum of 2 frozen cycles. So meaning that there is something indicating a better chances with the fresh cycle. But as mentioned, if it's a tricky and you had some issue with getting right implantation window, or your lining to be prepared perfectly, let's say you need some more medication or more scanning and monitoring, then it's good to proceed with the frozen cycle. So meaning that the towing can be a last minute, maybe not, it's a couple of hours, but it's giving you more chances of the right implantation window and of course the success of having a pregnancy.
Yes, of course, and thank you for the question and your answer, Elizabeth, as well. And now we will take the next question, which is also connected to freezing eggs and going abroad. Shipping frozen eggs abroad, are the eggs usually okay, or is it problematic?
Okay, here is a tricky question because usually this is agreement between the clinic's laboratory, meaning they need to know how the eggs or embryos were frozen, and means that they have to go with the right protocol on the other side. And if are two different clinics or two different experts, things of course can go different way. If you have an option to proceed with the shipment of embryos rather than eggs, try to do that. Rather, this is a more stronger and more likely to survive rather than fragile eggs.
Thank you for your answer to this question as well. And we have actually one more quite connected to this topic as well. So we will take a closer look at this one as well. What about if a vitrified embryo achieved from a donor egg and own sperm does not survive the thawing process? Does the clinic take any responsibility if the embryos were achieved in a program with a guarantee? Let's say the clinic guarantees 3 blastocysts, one of them is transferred fresh, other 2 are vitrified. Later, with a second transfer, the embryos get thawed and do not survive. What happens in such a situation?
You need to check the contract. You are signing the contract, and of course, the best would be to discuss this kind of scenario prior all the procedure. If the semen was with, there was no, doubts from the clinic side said about the quality, I think the clinic will have to be responsible for that. It's in terms of giving you a discount or offering you another cycle. I'm not saying for free, but with a discount, and this is what we are have hearing. However, please do check the contract, and of course, if you are prior that, ask the clinics about the possible scenarios and make sure that this is in written.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for answering this question and explaining this quite complicated matter to us as well. We have still some questions to go, so we will take the next one. We are considering an IVF clinic in Prague, but have very irregular cycles due to PCOS. How do you plan your visit abroad around your cycles, which are unpredictable? Is it possible to regulate your cycle with medication in order to plan your visits? Thank you.
Maxine, it's probably a question to the doctor. What I hear usually they do regulate a cycle with a contraceptive pill. However, in case of PCOS, it's more complicated. It's giving it's something to check about your hormones, and probably the right might be and suggested a mock cycle, meaning that they will test different medication and see how you respond, and do some scanning. Sometimes it's best, to wait a bit of longer and do some, might be sound bad, but it's experiment, but check your options and what will work on you. Because of the hormone imbalance and irregular cycles, probably monitoring you will be very complicated. And well, on the plus side, usually patients with this condition generate more eggs and, of course, in terms more embryos. However, it's really very individual, and the best is to speak with the doctor directly and discuss all these options and your worries and how they would suggest to proceed with.
Yes, of course, and thank you. And there will be an additional question from me, Elizabeth. Do you think those kind of cases are the best for the free online consultation? Can you help somehow?
Yes, definitely. And if you have especially some recent tests, like recent, at least 6 months old, definitely we can help you quickly to get a different opinion from different location. And this doesn't mean that we are pushing you to the top clinic that will charge you serious money. You can check a more economic version and see how the doctor is, how the clinic is, and if this is something that you are feeling comfortable with, first of all.
Yes, and great to hear that. And thank you for the question, of course, for additional answer. And indeed, we have the next one, which is waiting for you. So let's take a look on this one. How long, meaning days, can an IVF patient plan on spending in that country?
Okay, this is a question on how would you like to proceed. If you are proceeding with the classical IVF, with meaning with your own eggs, and you want to do it from the day one till the egg retrieval, egg transfer, this is meaning that you will stay 3 weeks, sometimes a month. Because after you start medication, the doctor will need to do scans and see how you respond to this medication, how the eggs are maturing, how many of them there are. And of course, within the trigger shot that you will be given, probably maximum to 2 days prior egg retrieval. And after egg retrieval, if you are not overstimulated, think about it, because if in case the medication will be not adjusted right, or you respond to the medication in not predicted way, means that the transfer will be cancelled. So means that you have to come back or wait another month, another cycle. But with the classical IVF, this is the longest time you need to stay. You can also proceed in the bit different way, meaning you are getting your medication at home, you are finding the doctor or the clinic that will do the scans for you, and then you are coming to the clinic only, of course you are sending meanwhile, and you are in communication with the clinic's doctor, and you are feeding the doctor and clinic about the progress. Then you can come only for the egg retrieval, and then the duration of your stay, of course if everything will be going okay, would be probably 8 days, can be. If you are proceeding with egg donation, here also things can complicate. If you want to do the synchronizing your donor and yourself, that would mean your stay will be from 8 days to 2 weeks to plan with. Also, here is, please do remember, there is a risk. Maybe this is not high percentage, and clinics will not tell you. It can be a situation that there is no right implantation window, or there are no embryos to transfer. Your cycle will be cancelled. Meaning that you will return for another time. Something also to discuss with the doctor. In case you, and this is something I do suggest, if you cannot travel both of you, but one of you can, the partner to travel, leave the semen sample, can be tested, and they can see how at least one side is okay. At the same time, he can pick up the medication, take home. The donor can be stimulated, and they will know how many eggs are there. They can fertilize, and if it's something within the Europe, you can come to the clinic, and they can check your lining, if it's implantation window, it's okay. They can prolong the cultivation of embryos and do the transfer. Of course, there's an option to do the frozen cycle, which is more safe in terms of if you are traveling from far away and you cannot spend so long time in the country. So there's many options, many to consider, and it's just a matter of choosing the right one for you.
Yes, and thank you for a very detailed answer to this question. And we have 2 more to go, I believe. So we will take the one which takes us back to the topic of frozen embryos, and actually what's done after it's shipped. So after shipping frozen embryos from Spain to a different clinic in a different country, does the recipient clinic has to follow a special procedure and use the same products as the Spanish one to thaw embryos in order to keep the same quality? Do you know anything about that?
Yes, usually this is an agreement between the clinics, meaning that they have to fill up this all forms about how the eggs were or embryos were frozen to reverse the protocol, meaning that this is some certain steps that they have to follow. It is, of course, they will, well, they should not follow a different procedure or different protocol in that terms, because meaning they fill up these forms and giving this information how the eggs were frozen. So you do expect from the other side how they will thaw. However, I believe the courier company is very aware of that, and that is why before you do the transfer or choose the clinic and you have some frozen embryos, you check, and I suggest to go to the courier company and check if they do not cooperate with certain clinics, so they have some path that will make it easier, or they know that they are aware or knowledgeable about this particular procedure.
Yes, and thank you for this great answer. And we will take the next one. Maybe you can advise on this topic. How long after unsuccessful attempt we can go for next attempt?
This is something also to discuss with the doctor. Usually they say to wait at least 2 cycles. Sometimes one is just really if it was implantation or there was no implantation, so meaning there was early miscarriage or not, and very personal question, and to be asked to the doctor and ask why. Just simply ask why.
Yes, and totally understandable. So thank you for this piece of advice as well. I know that I told you that we have 2 to go, but then in the meantime appear one more time, and this will be the final one. But maybe taking into consideration that you have so huge experience, maybe you can also advise something about this topic, which appears quite often in our IVF webinars. Do you know which company tends to be the most affordable to ship eggs or sperm or embryos internationally? I'm coming from the US and will be going to North Cyprus or Ukraine, if not Mexico.
No, I do not know which are more affordable. I do not compare. I know which one are reliable. And this is what sometimes I talk to the patients in terms of choosing a clinic. It sometimes looks like you are saving €1,000 because you found a better option, but in the same time you might lose 4,000 because you think you save €1,000, but you choose a poor quality and you don't give yourself a chance from the very beginning. So it's the same thing with the courier company. I would be careful. Use the one that is reliable. Meaning they hold the certifications. There is no bad opinion running around, but verified one. And yes, especially somebody who has experience already with this company.
Yes, and huge thank you for your answer to this question and all the questions we have had today. If by any accident any question left unanswered, I can assure you that we will be back with answers, and I will forward everything to Caroline and Elizabeth tomorrow morning, so they will for sure come back to you with any answers if we missed any question tonight, which is almost impossible, but never, yes.
Miracles happen.
Yeah, it could happen. And now I will have some shout outs for you. Thank you for all your help. And yes, indeed, it was very helpful, and your experience is huge. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. And thanks. And again, thank you.
Thank you all. And please get back to us with some photos of your babies, okay? This is what is making us, this is our fuel. Of course, we will not share with anybody, but yes, it will make us grow.
Yeah, and I think we can call it a deal. So thank you one more time to everybody who was with us and who joined us this evening. And thank you to you, Elizabeth. And I know it's your first IVF webinars tonight, so it was a great job. And I hope that you like this experience. thank you one more time for your time. Of
Thank you
course, the recording from today will be available on our website tomorrow and on our YouTube channel. And what you can do, you can follow us and our social media channels to stay tuned and to be up to date with all the updates we share with you. And Elizabeth, if you have any final comment, if you want to add anything, please do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Please remember, I'm not the one person behind the egg donation friends fertility clinics on board. There's a team working, and do not hesitate to contact us and abuse, especially Caroline. She likes it.
Yes, thank you. It was a great evening, and it was a pleasure to have you here, Elizabeth. I hope to see you all back here again next week. Okay, so for tonight, it will be good night. Thank you one more time, Elizabeth, and have a good night's sleep or day, wherever you are. This will be a wrap. Bye.
Bye.